Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism The sound of the temple bell boom for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of nonviolent global village forever. Here is the after sound of thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Amoga. Varochana Mahamoga. Mani Padme Jvala Pavartaya.
Please stand and join me in chanting with the three refuges. And we offer the refuges to Buddha Dharma Sangha, first in Sino-Korean, in keeping with our tradition, and then in English. So please throw your words in and bless your family. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace
and happiness for the many,
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please be seated for another shorter period of meditation. Just join me in a little stretching and into our meditation. So please sit comfortably. Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So welcome in to our service this morning. I feel very grateful for the energy that you bring and your presence here in the Sangha. And you can hear that the birds have joined us as well. So whenever we do these services and Dharma talks, really it's something we sort of create together. So I appreciate everyone's engagement as we do this. Next week, at this time, we will be at Friends Lake engaged in Liberation of Life service. And this Liberation of Life is a very ancient, very ancient tradition. Probably it goes beyond Buddhism to other religions as well. Sometimes it's known as releasing of animals. And I'm going to give you one example so you can get a flavor of what liberation of life is all about. So the basic premise is it involves rescuing and releasing beings otherwise destined for slaughter. So if we think of beings, that's birds, animals, insects, worms, these kinds of beings, fish. There's a monastery in Vancouver, British Columbia, Old Buddha Monastery, that at 10:20 a.m. on the last Sunday of every month, they do a liberation of life service. And what they do is release $5,000 worth of sea creatures back into the sea. So this consists of halibut, flounder, sole, rockfish, crab, prawn, shrimp, and oysters. And they work with the Vancouver Department of Fisheries and Oceans to do this properly. So, and by that I mean there's a limit on how much they can purchase and release. And $5,000 seems to be what they can do. And also choosing fish that are appropriate, that already are seed friendly, to be given this chance at release. So their ceremony includes purification of the waters. They recite the Great Compassion Dharani, which we recite here from time to time. They read the Heart Sutra, the 3 refuges, and recite the 12 links of dependent origination and the 4 great vows. So, why do you think we might have this ceremony? I'm just curious, top of mind, what you think some reasons for this would be. Any guesses?
Keep the world populated?
Oh,
To keep the world populated with creatures of wealth for us?
So they're populated with
Life?
light. And MC.
Precept number 1 is do no harm. That seems like a pretty active way of preventing a harm that will happen.
So indeed, that is one of the Buddhist teachings that is being emphasized in here. So precept number 1, do not harm, but cherish all life. It's an expression of that. It's also an expression of generosity or giving of gifts. So there are 3 main kinds of Buddhist gifts: the gift of wealth, the gift of dharma, and the gift of no fear. So wealth, we're channeling that $5,000 into purchase of these sea creatures. Dharma, we're connecting back to all these wonderful Dharma teachings, first precept, the Heart Sutra, all these kinds of things. And no fear. So we're saying to these creatures, you need to have no fear. We're going to operate in harmony with good moral principles. So that is sort of the basis of this. But then there is one third kind of principle. So we had first precept. That's one thing that's being honored in these gifts. And then the third one is rectification of negative karma or repaying karmic debt. And that's what I want us to think about for the remainder of our time together today. What is this karma? What's that all about? So, Haji Sunim sent me this quote the other day. She's reading this book on dependent origination. And this has to do with collective dharma debt, which is what is being addressed in this type of ceremony. 3 unwholesome physical types of karmas are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Killing, no matter what its intent, is done in ignorance. We may try to justify it in many ways, but ignorance always underlines any act of killing. Those who kill may not like to hear that it's done in ignorance. They may think their action will benefit some. But with enough wisdom, we can find another way of helping others. Without the wisdom and insight to find another way that does not require taking of a life, we remain in ignorance. And this comes from Bhante Karan Tanner, book by Bhante Karan Tanner. So this collective dharma debt is related to these deeds that we've designated as especially heinous, killing being one of them. And it harkens back to the 3 poisons of greed, anger, and delusion. So I find this collective dharma sort of overwhelming. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that. Collective karma, sorry. Also collective dharma. And so I guess I prefer to bring it a little closer to home and try to understand what do we mean by karma in our everyday lives and how does that operate? Why is it important? Can it give us any guidance as to how that we are aware of and live our lives? So this is actually, the Buddha spent a lot of time with karma on his journey to enlightenment. If you can recall the enlightenment experience, it took place in 3 watches of the night. So during the first watch of the night, the Buddha was recollecting all of his own past lives. In the second watch of the night, he was aware of past lives of all human beings throughout time. And then the third watch of the night, he arrived at the 4 Noble Truths and the 8-Fold Path. So this, you could think of this recollecting of past lives as being a type of processing of karma. And then in the first 2 verses of the Dharmapada, the Dharmapada is a collection of sayings of the Buddha. So I'm not quite sure who put this collection together initially, but I find it interesting that the first 2 verses are about the topic of karma. The chapter is called Choices. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Speak or act with an impure mind, and trouble will follow you, as the wheel follows the ox that drives the cart. We are what we think. This is verse 2. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Speak or act with a pure mind, and happiness will follow you, as your shadow, unshakable. So this is sort of karma in action. And I find it interesting that it immediately sort of goes to thoughts and intentions. So maybe a month or couple months ago, we spent some time talking about the five skandhas, which are basically their processes um, that that go on, and we get attached to these processes, and then we think that's a separate self. So form, feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. So this karma is connected in particular. We can see it playing out in consciousness. You can think of consciousness as knowing. How do you know the world? And closely tied to that is what we term impulse or volition or intention. So you can think of this volition as sort of the command moment. This is about that terminology from Joseph Goldstein. I think that's useful. So the command moment. So right before we act, before we speak, before we go to that next thought, we have this command moment. That's the volition. And that volition is tied to, you could term it maybe motivation or intention. So before I get to that command moment, I sort of start with a frame of reference, and the frame of reference can be based on my past karma. That's not always apparent. So let's just take, for example, before I open my mouth to speak, to give this Dharma talk, what is my intention? So my intention could be, well, maybe I want to entertain you. Or my intention could be, I want to inform you. Or maybe I want to give you advice. Or maybe I simply want to engage you and plant a few things for you to process, to come to conclusions on your own. It could be any of those things, but depending on what my intention is, the command moment comes out a little bit differently, and my action, my speech comes out a little bit differently, and then the speech or the action is connected to a result. So this is the mechanism of karma. So David Goldstein refers to it as, he reminds us that it's karma vipaka, action and results that are combined together. Karma in and of itself just means action. But for us to, for it to have some impact it, we have to look at that result too. So again, I would kind of encourage you to watch or listen to this Dharma talk by David Goldstein. It's called Understanding Karma. And so he explains pretty clearly, more clearly than a lot of teachers, how the mechanism works. So I'm just going to run through this briefly. So the reminder is, the Buddha started with this goal of reducing suffering, okay? And then we go to this idea that with our thoughts, we create the world. So we create our own suffering with our thoughts. And this is trying to understand the nature and workings of our mind. So the Buddha then uses term law of karma to talk about how the mind creates happiness and suffering. This term law I find interesting because karma is not the only law operating. There are other kinds of natural laws. if you think, for example, the law of gravity or laws of nature, so this law of karma and this action and results in this individual reference we're working with right now, you may run across times when you say, well, that's really a good person. They do all sorts of good things. Why did that happen to them? And so there's other laws at work. Maybe it's laws of nature. Maybe collective karma is trumping individual karma at that point. This kind of thing. So mind refers to knowing or consciousness. Knowing is a process. In and of itself, this is neutral. And the role of volition or intention in bringing about results, this intention is what makes it sort of not neutral. So if we want to understand how the actions unfold, we need to understand intention. So the good news is, if with our thoughts we make the world, we can create suffering. I mean, not only create suffering, but we can create happiness. We can transform that. So consequences and results. How do we see this karma unfolding in a practical sense? So in some ways, this just gets down to awareness of our habits and what we are doing. And it's so prevalent, so obvious, maybe so obvious in our lives that we don't really think of it as karma, but think of it in terms of habits. And then it's the small, insignificant actions of speech, body, and mind that really add up and make these patterns of things that go on. And then pretty soon we start seeing a different result. So here's one example. Here at the temple, we ring the bell at the end of the day to sort of signal the day is complete, time for us to retire. When I first started coming to the temple 20 years ago, the bell was rung at 10 p.m. at night. And then over the years, it started to be rung a little bit earlier. Because residents, people who live here, we get up pretty early. We're usually up by 5. And so 10 o'clock, it seems like kind of a stretch. I have to stay up for 10 to ring this bell. I remember doing that, actually. I remember I was so tired I would go to sleep at 9 o'clock and set my alarm so I could get up and ring the bell at 10. But gradually over time, our wisdom became, well, maybe it's okay to ring it a little bit earlier. And so started to be rung at 9. And then now it's rung more at 8:30. And so we have been through this, we've created a new pattern of action, a new karma, so to speak. And now I see that extended maybe to other things. So in the morning, we do 108 prostrations. Well, sometimes we're too tired to do 108 prostrations. So now we do 36. And I have to wonder, is our collective karma creating a practice that's maybe a little bit less robust? So I'm sure if you think of your individual life, you can think of habits or patterns that you have that have been created over time. Maybe one of these for me personally, I'm thinking, I eat something sweet nearly every day. And we have both the blessing and the curse of being right next to Artist Farmstead. They have so many delicious treats. And so I find myself sneaking over there for something sweet every day. But now I find that, my body's starting to feel a little bit less good, a little bit less healthy. So maybe I need to bring my attention back to my eating patterns and this action that I have of what I put in my body, having some sort of result or impact. So another way that we see this karma unfold for us is memories. If you've done meditation for a while, this is one arena where memories sort of pop up. And these memories are examples of karma too, in a way it's like past lives being revealed. And sometimes there's something called lingering karma. And the lingering karma might be some habit that you thought you dropped or dealt with a long time ago, some relationship, some memory, and then all of a sudden sitting there in the midst of meditation, it comes back again. So it's a reminder that the roots of these habits can be pretty deep sometimes. One that comes up for me from time to time is I remember my brother who passed away several years ago now. And he had addiction issues, which the family did not recognize so well or deal with well. In my particular case, my brother lived 2 states away, and I didn't talk to him that much. So I was not that in touch with what was going on. But I do have this chronic debt of not being aware of that and not helping when help could have made a difference. And unfortunately, he did pass away from related to his addiction. So this is an example of lingering karma that does not go away so very easily, something that has to be worked with. So we have past, present, and future. The future is, again, sort of the hope. And this is where the framework of karma can be useful. I find it useful because I can use that frame of reference to decide, what is the wholesome next step versus the unwholesome next step. And this gets back to basic Buddhist teaching. So the wholesome next step would be something that is in line with offering maybe generosity or love or compassion. An unwholesome next step would be going back to those roots of greed, anger, delusion, or ignorance. And so in any moment, I can use that sort of as a reference point. Taking time to examine what's going on in this moment, or what I'm about to do next, and then we can comparing it to those lists the Buddhism offers us. There's lots of lists. There's greed, anger, and delusion, but there's lots of other lists that we can compare to as well. So I do find that helpful. So when I started preparing this Dharma talk, sometimes topics find me. I don't find the topic. The topic found me because of the liberation of life service and this whole idea of collective karma. And I started with, do I have to give a talk about the karma? I don't like this topic of karma. I'm resistant to this topic of karma. It's, even though it's kind of a natural law, it's quite complex, it's pretty archaic, and if I use the framework of collective karma, it feels kind of hopeless. Can't do anything about it. So starting with this kind of negative frame of reference. And then when I'm in that state, I say, well, I'm happy that we have the internet these days and so much access to wonderful teachers. And what do some of the reliable teachers say? And so I can go and look up this talk by Joseph Goldstein and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how we ended up here today. And in our remaining time, I want to offer, this is the time for the Sangha to create the Dharma talk together. I would like to know what resonates with you about karma. Is it something you ever think about in your life? And is there anything maybe that I mentioned that you would like to reflect upon or talk about?
Like house-like karma, to have a grandfather who's very violent and abusive. And I feel like we still can get some of that karma with the DNA that I have and sometimes even so that's what brings power to me with that.
You know, in response to that first question you asked about the liberation of life or releasing the seek creatures back into their happiness, my teacher once told me that we're the actual caretakers of this world. He said, the highest consciousness in this world is human, and we're charged to take care of it. And I believe and I practice it. That's the whole purpose. He said, there's no higher consciousness in the human world than the human. He said, you have the highest level of consciousness. So it's your responsibility to take care of the human world. In relation to karma, he often said, whatever you do, young child, you do to yourself. And that gives me a level of mindfulness and awareness. He said, master your thoughts, master your words, and master your body. He said, in all things, be the master of what you say, do, think, and feel in every moment. And that only comes through my meditation practice. That I can maintain a level of awareness of following that first precept, do no harm, but cherish all life. Thank you.
I have been thinking about this a little bit lately. Money's tight. There's a lot of bills, and the other day in the mail, the people that used to live at my house before me keep getting stuff, and usually return to sender, throw it away. I checked this mail, and there was $200 in cash in it, and it was for a baby shower. And I thought, things are tight. Like, is this a gift for me? But then I thought, I think not wanting to steal from a baby outweighs my need for $200. And I just was mulling that over and what my responsibilities are in regard to that. And so that's what I was thinking about in terms of karma.
I was reflecting on what you mentioned about the lingering karma. And a reflection I had recently is just how frustrating it can be sometimes to have like some lingering thoughts maybe come back when you're meditating or during your day, and but also how counterproductive it can be to try to like fight it, to try to being frustrated at it only feels like it gives it more energy. And yeah, I've just been reflecting about that. Just, being okay with having these lingering karmic thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, so we can't abolish a natural law such as karma, so we have to learn how to work with it. Lingering karma is going to be good. Yeah.
It kind of seems that there's a relationship between this lingering karma and the collective unconscious. And when we decide to make better decisions, we're changing that conscious flowing being thing.
I turned away from all spiritual practice for many years due to my uncertainty that I could never feel certain, so I just turned away from it. And I used to meditate many years ago, and I never made time for it for many years. I chose to be among angry people, and I tried to tolerate their anger, but it seemed that I was using it as an example because I became angry. I became an angry person. And my thoughts became disorganized and negative, and I saw things in that hopeless collective karma. Springtime made me cry because winter wasn't long enough. Every year there's less snow, but venting about it wasn't the right answer anymore, so I came here to return to a meditation practice, and I'm grateful that this place is here.
I almost feel the need to just pose a question because the concept of collective karma kind of made me think about, and it's a different kind of philosophy or whatever, but the whole concept of the Akashic record and how that concept, and I'm almost like asking questions for the answers if anybody might have an idea about it, but how the concept of collective karma kind of ties into the concept of the Akashic record and how we can kind of replicate certain things both within ourselves and collectively.
Could you say a little more about the Akashic record?
Or that?
Could you say a little bit more about the Akashic record? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so it kind of came from a woman named last name Blavatsky. She was, I'm not even sure exactly how to describe her. Does anybody have any frame of reference to be able to, or am I totally going on?
Tell us just a little.
So it's a little bit like, so all of, it really kind of reminds me of collective karma because it's kind of like, it's this like psychic, I guess I would say maybe. collective, throughout all of human history and even prehistory, all of our actions, deeds, thoughts, and things that collectively accumulate throughout time. And both like past, present, and future, and things like that. So I'm kind of almost just trying to tie the concept of collective karma into that. But if we don't have a frame of reference, then I guess maybe we can include that or something. Because I feel like there are very similar parallels between, collective karma and that sort of thing. And I guess it might be something that we could maybe, and instead of like having things that separate us or whatever, it could be something that we could, bring into our practices that could help the collective and also help individuals, I guess. So, yeah. Next person, I guess.
So, speaking with justification and whatnot, in my personal experience, I wonder if the last 4 years of my life, kind of like Nicole's experience, kind of thing that just I can't get back up from. But the beginning of it was I was in a very domestic violent relationship with my ex-husband, and in order for me to get away from him, I purposely practiced infidelity for a brief period of time before separating from him to emotionally attached. And since doing so, because of I was spending one thing after another, and I can't seem to get back up where I was. To me in my head, like I felt like the karma should be like neutralized because I did something bad because something bad was being done to me. But like, am I in like a karmic cycle? You know what I mean? Like, how do you figure that out? I guess 4 years later, you know what I mean? Any advice on that? Or how to justify? I mean, does karma even out? You know what I mean? Or is it just like because I did something bad myself, it's still gonna be there?
I almost feel sometimes like what karma was actually intended to mean when it reaches I think there might be a bit of a I don't know, a misnomer or a misunderstanding on different levels of karma, what karma is and how it works. And I don't necessarily intend to pose an answer for your question because I think the answer could be yes, that it could be cyclical. And that's really like when you sit with yourself long enough, I think some of those things will resolve, But just to answer your question, yeah, I think that it does appear that it could be like a cyclical sort of thing. If you aren't able to break it, and I think that's the purpose of sitting in practice.
And I think one of the things to keep in mind too is that, so in Buddhism, karma isn't necessarily like something that's coming from an outside source. It's basically like how we keep our mind and like how our mind is, and then the like actual kind of reactions to the actions that we take. It's just sort of cause and effect, but it's also like Maui said, it's how we keep our mind and how we sort of see the world. And so it's not. I don't have any answers to this situation.
Right, obviously no one does.
But yeah, but it's like,
Does it neutralize it, you like? I think it neutralizes, does it neutralize?
I think what it means by how you keep your mind, that's like a daily, almost like a daily meditation practice in gardening, right? Something similar? Or?
Yeah, no, I think we need to.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's separate from us, and it takes time, playing around with that. So, in dealing with their mind and their past karma, there's a teacher at a monastery out west
And so it's sort of like if you have a bunch of yarn that's like kind of been knotted up into a tight knot, our first impulse is just to kind of pull at it. But that only makes it worse because you're trying to force it. And so you have to be gentle with yourself and just sort of like, if you just bounce the yarn and sort of just toss it around and watch it, it'll slowly loosen up. So,
That's really good.
yeah, yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
So thank you for all sharing your wisdom. To bring us to a close, I'm just going to share 3 quick thoughts. So these are kind of lessons learned for me over this week as I worked with karma. So one of them, the first one is there ain't no free ride. So the karma we have to deal with is karma. And we have to be a little bit selective about what we deal with, what we choose to deal with. Otherwise, we're going to drive ourselves nuts. The second thought is framework of investigation. I think the idea, the concepts of karma can be useful for us to use as a lens through which to look at our actions and behaviors. The third, it applies to everyday reality. And the fourth, it is empowering. If you think about karma, it's very empowering. It is a mechanism for us to begin to transform us with our thoughts. We make the world. So let's leave it there. These conversations, I hope, can continue after we finish service. And someone find a conversation buddy, continue with that. Let's end with the 4 great vows, and then we'll have some announcements. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
A great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
Right, who is doing announcements today? It's Pasada Amy, and here she comes.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How many people are here for the first time? Wow, that is really great. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about upcoming events at the temple. And there are copies of this handout out in the lobby here that you're welcome and invited to take with you. There's also, we have an e-bulletin. And if you're not yet on our e-bulletin, there's a sign-up sheet right outside the lobby as well. So some upcoming events. Maum has been talking about next week's service. And are there any other logistics? All right, how you?
Yes,
Great.
there are logistics, many logistics. So next week's service will start at 10 a.m., just like this. As Maum mentioned, we're actually going to be at Friends Lake in Chelsea. So this is just north of Chelsea. And tomorrow we'll be sending out an e-bulletin with the whole directions. It's easy to get to, but many of us have been there before. But they've invited us to go out there and have a Liberation of Life services. We will be liberating minnows that would have been used for bait. They still might be eaten, but at least they'll be eaten as free minnows. Our whole Sangha will be invited, and so we'll have, I think, a van coming out. If you don't have a way to get there, we'll have, Young Child asked last week if we will have like a carpool. We will, from the temple. And so our e-bulletin tomorrow will have all of that information. And then after the service and the Liberation of Life, We're going to have a little potluck out there. I think the temple will supply maybe some tofu puffs. And you're welcome to bring a dish, and just, we're gonna have a nice day out there, but the big event will be the service and liberating the fish. Thank you, Susan.
So we also have yoga classes here at the temple, and those are on Tuesday evenings. Oh, the yoga has stopped for the
Last
summer.
week was the last week for the summer.
Okay,
So,
September.
so the yoga will resume in the fall. We have one of our retreats coming up, which is is it 5 days? 5 days, and it's called Youngman Junction, and this will take place in Chicago, and that is from June 28th to July 3rd. Anything anyone wants to say about Youngman Junction?
so this particular retreat is maybe our most intense one, so that we ask that perhaps you already would have done a retreat before you sign up for this one. We will have many other opportunities here at this temple. But please come to July 4th, precept taking.
Which is going to happen in Chicago. And this is a very exciting service where those taking the precepts class will finish the program that they've been in and also get their Buddhist names. So it's a very exciting service. And for programs today, I believe we have.
Recovery Dharma will be meeting at noon in the historic temple, the big yellow building next door in the library.
And the temple is entirely supported by your kind donations of money and time. And so there is a fishbowl out here in the lobby. And we also have work practice, garden practice in particular, on Saturdays at 3 p.m. And so that's another great time to be here and be involved.
What time will it end?
At 3 to 5 on Saturday.
Yeah, sometimes I work on Saturday and I get out at 3, so I could still come all the way.
That's fine.
That would be awesome.
And what time are we departing from here to go to Friends Lake next Sunday?
We'll be departing at 9:30.
9:30.
And I think also if we can have your help putting that together.
It's another thing that
Oh,
has
yes.
changed. Because there is no yoga, there's no need to pick up the mats and cushions. We can leave them where they are. So this week, just to neatly straighten, care for your mat and cushion, leaving good karma for the next person who sits there. All right, so let's all stand and we'll end with 3 formal bows. Okay, so facing the altar, bring your awareness to the bottoms of your feet, feeling connected to the earth beneath you. And then just enjoying this moment of Sangha togetherness as we make our bows. Everybody all set?
I knew it was you, but I was really, I'm still gonna say. Wow.
Where's Patrick?
He's actually at your house.
Oh,
Karen.
gotcha.
What brings you, how did you, how about this?
I used to.
Oh, really, you do? I was on the board, and the prospect. I was on the flight. Also was on there, right? Did you ever go to Burns Park?
Yeah.
Did you ever see those alternate birthday guys? Did you ever try them?
No, I never got. Yeah.
Sometimes I see those people play alternate birthday. I was hoping you would, as someone who lived around here, may know how to play.
Oh, I know. It's probably on Facebook. There's some group on this is
Not much, you go ahead, because I'm nervous.
Oh,
I want to see how you do it, okay?
Just
My
about,
first
nothing
time.
to be nervous about.
I'm just born to be nervous, born that way.
Thanks for coming.